Well, hello. Welcome to another edition of CannaSphere Africa, coming to you live right now if you're watching it. And if you're watching it afterwards, then it's not live. But it was live when you were watching it. Anyway, something like that. We've got a very packed show today. This is an exciting week, guys, for South Africa, because this weekend in Cape Town is the Cannabis Expo. It makes a return after 2 years of not being able to do it. We had one in Joburg recently. So we're very, very excited about that. So we're going to be chatting to Sirius, who runs the expo, later on. We've also got a whole lot of stuff coming up today, including Noxy is going to be talking about Mike's Bites. Jeff's going to be talking about metal testing and the Italian legislation situation. And then Dr. Gallow is going to be talking about cannabis addiction and overdose. So lots of things coming up. But before we get there, Linda, you want to give us the headlines? Linder, Earth to Linder, are you there?
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
I'm here. I can hear you loud and clear. Yes.
The headlines.
For sure. Good to be back. Good to be seeing everyone after the long weekend. Cape Town Cannabis Expo starts this week here in Cape Town at Grand West Casino. It's going to happen for the next 4 days. Government is looking to fast track cannabis legislation, which sounds very, very promising for all of us down here in the private sector. The police again are cracking down on Eastern Cape traditional growers, and Mpondo land farmers are saying no to hemp and yes to local land races.
Yeah, lots of stuff to go through. But just a reminder, this month's shows are brought to you by our good friends at Zootly. They are an online store. They have a store in Kloof Street. They sell all kinds of things, and we've been giving away some Zootly nests. And last week's winner, are you ready? Of this beautiful Zootly nest was Alvin Moyo. Alvin, congratulations. We'll be on the way to you. We will be giving another one of those away at the end of the show. So stand by. If you're not watching this live, it's okay, because we still take entries afterwards. We get lots of entries afterwards. So if you haven't managed to watch it live, don't worry. You are still in the running. Right now, let's cross over to Limpopo province for Brett Hilton-Barber for the headline news. Over to you, Brett.
Greetings from the CannaSphere news desk in Limpopo, where we are feeling the first pinch of autumn chill in the air. In the CannaSphere news this week, the Cape Town Cannabis Expo is back. After 2 years of enforced COVID-induced closure, Africa's premier cannabis expo is on this weekend at Grand West. That's from Thursday, 25 March to Sunday, 27, sponsored by Juicy Fields. There'll be over 150 exhibitors, including the Cheeba guys and ourselves, Cannabis Africa. There's going to be a food festival, a shroom festival, live music. And if the last one was anything to go by, we can expect a really good turnout in the thousands. Silas Howarth is the organizer of the Cannabis Expo company, which also does the Sandton, Durban, and Pretoria expos. And he's joining us now. Silas, are you with us? Hi, greetings, Silas. I want to talk to you. Firstly, hi. Can you hear us loud and clear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome. First, before we talk about the Cape Town Cannabis Expo, which we're all excited about, you guys pulled off quite a coup last year by organizing the Mexican Cannabis Expo. Tell us quickly a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was quite amazing. I mean, it was actually only halfway through last year, so 2021, it was still pandemic time. And we were still not able to run large-scale expos in South Africa, but the good people at Juicy Fields had faith in us to run a show with them, our first cannabis expo in Latin America, in Mexico City. It was amazing. Firstly, amazing to be doing an event during these times, but and the first one that we've done since the pandemic started. But also amazing to have a whole new market, a whole different side of the world, but different people, but all just united around the same plant.
That's really, really exciting. Now, tell us about Cape Town coming up this weekend. What's going to be different from the last time you had the Cape Town Cannabis Expo 2 years ago? Obviously, the pandemic's been around, but from a cannabis marketplace perspective, what's changed?
We're super excited. I mean, from a market, it's interesting. You know, the pandemic has been problematic for many businesses, and sure, some cannabis businesses have suffered, but the cannabis industry as a whole has actually still continued to grow and boom during this time. So it's amazing to actually, after 2 years of not doing these expos in Cape Town, to be able to bring all of these new innovative products and services within the cannabis industry to consumers and, you know, to everyone in Cape Town. So that's really exciting. Loads of new products, loads of new exhibitors, about 150 different exhibitor stands. We've also got a Shroom Expo component, which is new in Cape Town, all things psilocybin. So that's quite exciting. And very much an educational side at the moment, because it's still very much illegal. And of course, there's a festival as well, the Juicy Fields Freedom Festival outside, which is a new edition in Cape Town, and it's going to be amazing. Bands and DJs and artists throughout the 4-day expo, Thursday to Sunday.
That's amazing, Silas, and good luck with it. We'll all be present there. But just a last quick one: with cannabis becoming mainstream like this, and we're still in this grey area. Do you guys at the expo have any hassles with the cops?
We don't at the moment. I mean, and at any of our expos, you know, they've been pretty. It's been pretty amazing, and I think generally the atmosphere is pretty relaxed. Whether you're from the, you know, part of just a visitor or a delegate or part of the police force wandering around. So that's been really encouraging. But also, you know, we do make sure the expo itself, everything that happens around there is completely legal and within the legal parameters.
Great. Well, good luck. That's Silas Hart from the Cape Town Cannabis Expo. It's on this weekend at Grand West, Thursday to Sunday. Parliament's legal team is furiously trying to adapt the Cannabis for Private Purposes bill so that at least one piece of cannabis legislation gets passed this year. The main problem is that a new clause has been inserted in the bill which will allow for the commercial trade in hemp, but not high THC products, although the bill does leave the door open for possible full adult use legalization. However, this clause is likely to be the subject of litigation, particularly if the public participation process is not opened up again. Parliament's considering whether the bill should first go to the National Assembly and then be opened up briefly for comment before it goes to the National Council of Provinces for final ratification. One of the problems is that the bill is vague around the rights of traditional healers and growers. Police in the Eastern Cape have cracked down on what they call a major drug syndicate supplying cannabis from the former Transkei to the Garden Route and Southern Cape. 6 men are due to appear in the George Magistrates Court next Monday for dealing in what police say was a large amount of dacha. The men represented several cannabis-growing villages in the Eastern Cape, ironically the very villages that the National Cannabis Master Plan is meant to support. And while we're in the Eastern Cape, a spokesman for the thousands of illegal cannabis farmers in the area has rejected the notion that they should switch to growing hemp. Greece and Tombela Zweni of the Umzimvubu Farmers Support Network told the International Convention on Narcotics Drugs this week that cannabis farmers wanted to be legalized and get government support, particularly in the provision of high-quality feminized seeds and financial support. Zweni said cannabis farmers did not want to switch to hemp as local cannabis landraces had adapted to the climate over hundreds of years and were a resilient and proven source of income, whereas hemp was untested. And finally, with Human Rights Day celebrated in SA on 21 March, let's spare a thought for the families of those sentenced to death for their part in the 1956 Bergville Dacha War. 22 men were hanged at Pretoria Central on 21 March 1957 after being found guilty of murdering 5 policemen. The men, who the Marijuana Board of South Africa calls brave Zulu warriors, ambushed police trying to eradicate their cannabis plantations in the Drakensberg. In the firefight, 5 policemen died, and then the police really moved in, arrested the entire community, tried 22 of them for murder, and the Marijuana Board of South Africa says these warriors should be commemorated for standing up for their rights. Well, that's an interesting one. Back to you, Trenton.
Thanks, Brett. Very interesting way to end it. Sorry, I'm struggling with your shirt. It's hurting my eyes. What is that?
Yes.
What is that? What is on there?
I should come with a health warning.
You should. What is it?
It's
What is it?
Yeah, it's well, I can't get it. There you go. It's the mother of Mary.
Flowers and okay,
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, there you are.
Very nice.
Colourful.
Cool. All right, bro. We'll be back in a minute. What else to talk about? But I'm all ears for the next piece with Noxy, Canna Lifestyle. Over to you. Over to you.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Canna Lifestyle News Desk. Sorry, I'm still laughing at Brett's shirt. I can't breathe. In other news, in international entertainment news rather, it would be an absolute shame if this show came to an end without us mentioning Mike Bites. For those of you who haven't already heard, Mike Tyson broke the internet a few days ago with the most recent launch of his company's brand new edibles called Mike Bites, a nod to the prolific boxer's fight against Evander Holyfield. You know the one, the infamous title fight that ended with Holyfield leaving the ring with the big chunk of his ear bitten off. Yes, that really happened, in case you were born in like the 2000s and you're not sure what that's about. That's what's that about. The infamous title fight ended dramatically, and of course, in true Mike Tyson fashion, he had to make money off of this horrible tragedy for Mr. Holyfield. Now, to commemorate that infamous fight, Tyson has come out with Mike Bites, which Tyson endorsed on Twitter. He has long been involved in cannabis, praising the drug and its benefits over those of drinking alcohol. In a recent interview, Iron Mike said he was just miserable, out of control, and fighting with everybody, even citing that he would punch people who asked him for interviews in the face. Guys, after he retired, he started smoking weed, and he believes that not smoking weed in his career was one of the biggest mistakes he could have made in his entire life. He went on to say that had he smoked cannabis during his career, he would have been in a better state of mind and not punched random people who asked for autographs. Cannabis changing people's lives and mindsets is something I'm sure all, if not most, cannabis consumers can relate to. I know I can. What about you, Trenton?
Yeah, I think I don't know whether it's first of all, only in America could you get away with something like that. So is he a marketing genius or is it dark? I don't know. I would definitely try one though. How many milligrams are there? Did it say?
It didn't really give us much information about milligrams. But yeah, I guess he's actually the right person to be launching gummies.
Yeah. Anyway, each to their own.
I mean, Holyfield feels about this.
That's what I'd like to know. Hopefully, he's getting some royalties off the back end.
Probably.
Cool. Anyway, I would definitely try one. Definitely. Mike Tyson's definitely got credibility in the cannabis industry with the amount of Zol he consumes. Anyway, Noxy, we'll speak to you a bit later. Thanks for that. We're now going to cross over to Jeff, who's going to give us a bit of stuff on Canna Tech. And going to take a look at some of the international stuff that's happening in the industry. Over to you, Jeff.
So in today's news, we're going to be discussing firstly on Canna Tech. How does one go about testing for heavy metals? We often hear that cannabis is an aggregated plant, which means it takes on metals quite easily. And in a country where there's a history of a lot of open mining, it is a point of concern because the negative side effects of long-term metal exposure, especially heavy metals, is concerning. So this is usually achieved via two routes. Either you make use of AA, an atomic absorption device, or you use something like an ICP, which stands for inductively coupled plasma. So essentially what would happen is this device would have an ignition source. They generate ions when they heat the sample. And from the spectra, they would basically know using either an OES or a mass spec on the back end of that instrument, whether or not there's a lot of heavy metals in that product or in that sample. For the most part, it's easy to implement cultivation practices that avoids the introduction of heavy metals. However, just to protect human health, it is good to know what is in your sample, especially once it starts to get into consumers' hands and medical patients' hands. Now, in terms of international news, the big one is obviously Milan. Specifically, the city of Milan is busy heavily pushing the Italian government to increase reforms on the cannabis legislation in the region. We know that from going back into Italy's history, it's one where there's always been a strong history for hemp. And the first commercial licenses were really in military prisons, as an example. So hopefully the Milanese government will make some success and progress in enabling access in the region, especially around Italy. And then lastly, Ecuador also not want to be left out from the push in Colombia. And they are also aggressively trying to get commercial products out. I think recently a company called Ava was quite active with cosmetic products in the region. So I would hopefully see South Africa learn from these Latin regions as well in terms of how to successfully commercialize for industry. Back to you, Trenton.
Thanks, Jeff. We were talking off camera about Narcos, the Netflix series, which is extremely well done, and just the amount of human life that has been lost in South America because of the war on drugs. It's terrible, you know. But it is a fascinating program, and just to think that all of this stuff happened and all of this money fighting this whole kind of drug situation, and you know, in the next few years it's all going to be legal. We look back and just go like, what were we thinking? It's completely insane, you know.
No, absolutely. Uruguay is a good example. They legalized pretty much all drugs some time ago now already.
Yeah, same as Portugal, though. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, which is really interesting, is that, you know, cannabis is this sponge. It just sucks up everything, you know. So whatever you're putting into it, wherever you're growing it, it sucks it out the air, it sucks it out the ground. So again, comes back to the fact that we need to respect the plant, grow clean, make sure that we're as chemically free as possible. Otherwise, those chemicals go straight into our bodies. So thanks for that, Jeff. Appreciate it. And have a great afternoon. Right, next up, we're across to Dr. Gallo, who's going to unpack a little bit about cannabis addiction and overdose. Slightly different angle. Over to you, Dr. Gallo.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well. Welcome to our medical episode. Today, I'm going to speak to you about myths about cannabis addiction and overdose. Many people, think that cannabis is a gateway drug, when in actual fact, it isn't. And I want to just talk about some stats and about some facts, because normally when you go to your doctor and you ask them about cannabis, they say, no, it's an addictive drug. And let's just talk about facts. So firstly, if you drink caffeine, guys, caffeine or your coffee is sitting at an addiction rate of 7%. Cannabis is actually sitting at an addiction rate of 9%. Your alcohol is sitting at 20%, and your nicotine is sitting at the highest at 30%. What does this mean? It means that the addiction cannot be equated with that of your cocaine, your heroin, your opioids, or alcohol, and the withdrawal is very mild and short-lived. So it is absolutely not true that cannabis is a gateway drug or addictive. Furthermore, even more exciting is there actually isn't any documented evidence of a pure cannabis overdose. I'm talking about from the actual plant and whole plant extracts, not synthetic cannabis. And the reason is scientific again. Given the fact that cannabis does not have any brainstem receptors, it should be classified as a much safer medication. Therefore, there is no potential for overdose or death. So with regards to THC or your tetrahydrocannabinol, people normally say, if you take too much of THC, what happens? And yes, there are adverse effects. What we found in medicine, the adverse effects actually occur when we mix recreational with medicinal. And the other is when naive users actually try cannabis and the dosing is all incorrect. And this is actually what promotes we have adverse effects, because tolerance has not been built up. That's why dosing is important, and we call it microdosing, and we build up that tolerance for those patients. So what are the adverse effects? Quickly, we'll go through it. Xerostomia, which is your dry mouth, euphoria, which is altered consciousness, acute panic or paranoid reactions, altered motivation, impaired attention, memory, and psychomotor performance, tachycardia, and orthostatic hypertension, basically increased appetite as well, which is sometimes a good side effect. So what happens if you experience the side effects? They should leave you in a short while, 6 to 8 hours if you consumed orals or caps, 2 to 4 hours if it was inhaled. And what do? You can sleep it off. You can counteract it with high doses of CBD, fresh lemonade with peel, fresh cold orange juice, cold shower, ice water in the face, drink cold water. So those are just things we can do. So it's actually a very, very safe medicine, guys. Back to you, Trenton.
The drogies, huh? That's all I can think about, the drogies. Red eyes and drogies. Anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, is like, the other thing people don't realize is if you're smoking cannabis with tobacco, and you have this craving for it. The craving is for the nicotine, not for the cannabis.
Yes, correct.
So when you talk about it, cannabis being, having an addictive property, it's all in the mind. Your body can do without it. As you say, the withdrawal is so minor. But, mentally we get into those situations where we need a crutch, and we lean on those things, and then it becomes negative. And I think that's the important thing about the cannabis industry, is that while there are huge benefits and it's really exciting, that, there is such thing as cannabis abuse.
Yes,
Consuming
correct.
too much cannabis, consuming at the wrong time. It also is something, it's a psychoactive plant, and it has to be treated with respect. I think that's the most important thing. So thank you for that insight. Very interesting to know, and we'll be back with you next week. So guys, what do you think about that? Any side effects that you guys have had? The drogies? Have you had dry mouth, dry eyes?
Dry mouth, dry eyes.
The munchies, obviously.
There was
the
one
munchies.
time.
Yeah. Okay, go.
There was this one time I had bad munchies, like really bad. Like I just kept on eating, and I couldn't stop, and then I ended up hurling after that, and I was like, never again, never again. Literally, my mind stopped eating, so I do the opposite now. I don't get munchies when I'm on cannabis at all.
That's the wrap.
No. Yeah, for me it's just the dry eyes, dry mouth,
Yeah.
red
I think
eyes.
of it.
What are you, Brett? Are you a munchies guy?
No, I'm not, and that's because
Guys,
I vary towards the sativa range of things, and I found strands that work for me that are actually appetite suppressants. I find anything with indica gives me more the munchies, but sativa keeps me sort of energized without reaching for the fridge. But I would like to know what the solution for red eyes is.
We actually covered that, Brett, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
If you just go back into our episodes.
Thank you for calling me up, Noxy. I will, but back to you.
Maybe it's a side effect from your sativa. We don't know.
I don't get the munchies, but I can't remember anything from yesterday.
No, for sure.
I love your
for
shirt,
sure.
Brett. I love all of Brett's shirts. This is just a disclaimer for everyone out there. I think we're losing Trenton a bit. He seems a bit very.
Sorry, Trenton, we're losing you, brother. Come back
losing
into
you,
the fold.
People complain about munchies. I love the munchies.
You see, he's talking about
Sorry,
the
please.
munchies, and we're not talking about that anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Quick question. We've got a competition.
The competition.
We've got
The competition.
the competition. Hello.
Trenton, can you hear us?
Am I back?
We can hear your
back.
voice.
I'm not back. Where am I? Am I back?
Yeah, you are. Well, we can hear you, but
I have a question.
yeah, go for it.
What is the name of the edible that Noxy was talking about?
But what?
Cool.
What's the name of the edibles that Brett was talking about?
What was the name of the
edibles that
edible?
Brett was talking that Noxy was talking about?
Okay. What was
yes.
so the question, everybody, is what was the name of the edible
Can you hear me now?
that Noxy was talking about during her
What
insert?
was the name?
Okay, got it.
You got
Okay,
that?
do you know?
And so
Know the
and
answer,
then-
or think you know the answer to this question? Please email the following email address: elevates@CheebaAfrica.com, and you could stand the chance to win this amazing Zootly nest that I'm going to cue right now. There it is.
lovely,
Okay,
lovely,
I'll
lovely.
have
There we go. Everybody must win. Everybody must
Can
win.
I give you an interesting fact about the aforementioned person that is also the cannabis ambassador for Malawi? Yes, you heard it right. And it seems like a really weird brand mix, but I don't want to get into. We can pick it up maybe next week. I don't want to get in the way of the competition. But isn't that an interesting thought? That's the guy we're talking about is Malawi's international cannabis ambassador, who's there to try and raise their investment profile in the international cannabis community.
I think it's just something that's really interesting, because I guess Mike Tyson's entered himself into a new wave in his life, from being a boxing champion now into a cannabis activist / business entrepreneur. And I guess also it sort of like gives an indication of what's happening in the times, that people in Malawi even are open to such things. And also being, the society that we live in now, we're very much open, to all these new innovative ways of marketing cannabis.
But here's the thing, Linda. In Malawi, cannabis, as we know it, Malawi, the home of Malawi gold, recreational adult use is illegal. They're trying to, their cannabis policy is around trying to grow hemp. And it just seems like a very weird brand mix to have, the Malawi government, which is looking to grow hemp, with somebody as wild as Mike Tyson, who's famously told Vladimir Putin that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You gotta love so guys, we've got to wrap it up. It's been great. We'll see you again, same time, same place next week. If you were not here for the live, then definitely watch the repeats, which are on YouTube. Probably by later today, if not tomorrow, you'll be able to catch up.
Right now.
Peace. Right now. Peace, love. Next week, guys. Ciao.
Cheerio.